Good evening. We're going to start our special session of the budget second workshop. Steve, would you please do a roll call?
Okay. Councilwoman Miles,
Present.
Councilman Jones. I'm trying to go in
Here.
order. Councilman McBride,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Frackleton.
Here.
Mayor Wu.
Here. Could we have Council Member Nicole Jones do a pledge of allegiance? All right, thank you. We will start the meeting. The workshop. So staff, please give us the report.
Thank you. This is our second budget workshop for the fiscal year 26-27, which starts July 1st. And you recall we did that about 3 weeks ago. There is no formal action today, but we can take direction from the council should they add things. So let me start by saying and reassuring that our situation has only improved financially. We are not worse. We're better off. Our revenues have come in, so we're slightly better. And our expenditures have been slightly lower. So we're actually in a very good situation. And we've made a couple of adjustments on our slides to address some of the issues that were raised last time about the appearances of how numbers might not look how they were. Long story short, again, there's no formal action today. We'll be going over We'll be going over the year-end projections, our revenue assumptions for next year, our estimated financing, and then the issues we have facing next year. There are still going to be a number of issues that we have pending that are out of our control, and we'll have a list of those at the end so you'll be able to see them. And then we'll talk about what our final step will be in adoption of the budget. So with that, I'm going to lean on Lee to go ahead and take the next section about our projections and our financing for next year.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. So this slide is a little bit revised and updated. So we started out with the beginning fund balance that is per our audited financial statement. That is like 8.9 million. That's carried forward to this like a fiscal year or 25-26 that we're currently at. The budgeted revenue at 6 million, we projected year end at 6.4. So therefore we have like a projections of like 416 above the budget, and mainly is increase of the property taxes, charges of services, investment income, just a slight lower when it comes to the sales tax compared to what we have budgeted. And with the beginning balance and as well as the current year revenue projection, so we have a total of available balance for spending, which is 15.3 million. And now on the expenditures side, our final budget, including the last week's city council meeting, the final budget is at 7.3 million, and we projected year end at 5.4. And therefore that we have like a roughly about 1.8 million, which is under the budget. And when it comes to the categories, you see the salaries and benefits, which is that we have a budget savings of roughly 84,000 below the budget, and the other operating expenses, which is 642,000 below budget. And the capital project improvements, as well as the capital outlay, such as the equipment expenses, is 1.1 million under the budget. But under the CIP project, so such as our street improvement project, 300,000+, that's gonna be carried forward and rebudgeted for next fiscal year. And the sewer improvement project, is roughly 750,000 under the budget that unspent currently, and that's gonna be rebudgeted and carried forward for next fiscal year. So as you have approved, like City Council approved the 31,000 that is needed for the troll improvement, that's gonna be needed before the year end.
So in comparison, if you look at the red line that shows our fund balance carry forward of 8.9 as of last June, will be now at 9.9. So we're $1 million better off year end where we were. That's largely because we just haven't spent things, but But so in answer to you, I think that answers your question, Mayor Pro Tem, about, how we look financially. So our situation has improved. And I think we tried to present it better that way.
Thank you. Okay, so these are the revenue assumptions for the next fiscal year. And compared to the first budget workshop, this hasn't been much changes. So property taxes is continued to be estimated at 3% increase in the assessed valuations, while the county is assessed at 3.5% increase. And that gave us $110,000 increase compared to this current fiscal year. And sales tax is a slight increase compared to last year, so that's like roughly 13,000. And then for passport processing fees and tech fees, we budgeted that to remain consistent. And now the next slide, these are the restricted revenue or the funding sources, as that the sewer improvement, so we received the annual sewer assessments, 407,000 per year, and that would give us like 3.2 million for this coming fiscal year. And OCTA, that is the 1/2 cent sales tax for the measure M2, that is specifically for road funding. That projection has been updated, so compared to our first budget workshop, it's a 3% increase from last fiscal year, so that will be allocated to be 133,000. And our state gas tax revenue, that include our road maintenance and rehab account, that is a SB1 money, that will be 342,000 to be allocated for this next fiscal year, 4% increase. And AQMD, which is roughly, that always remain consistent, about 7,000 per year, and that would give us 35,000 available for spending. And the PAC fee, which is a 1% franchise sales tax franchise, like a cable revenue, and that is like a $15,000 per year that we receive, and that would give us 88,000 available for spending for the upcoming fiscal year. And as we cover on the first budget workshop, and the last but not least is the $75,000 that we have received from the CalRecycle. That is the SB 1383 grant. We have received a couple years ago, that's set to be expired this coming end of this current year. And it's an edible food recovery program, and we already have spent 16,000. That's remaining, that 59,000 that to be spent in this current fiscal year. And the net revenue change for this new fiscal year, we projected that to be 327,000 increase compared to last year's budget. All right. So this is kind of like the summary, what we have for the last couple of slides, and also the next slides that Steve will go over. So as mentioned, the fund balance, the beginning balance is 8.9 plus the projected revenue 6.5. And we have estimated transfers in and out between funds that would be is a net zero balance, and the projected year-end expenditures for the fiscal year 25-26, 5.4. So that give us like an ending fund balance at the end of current fiscal year at 9.9. So with the budgeted revenue for the upcoming fiscal year 6.4, and estimated transfers in and out between fund for the capital projects, that's about 141,000. And upcoming budgeted operating expenditures 5.8, and the budget capital expenditures, which is some of them is rebudgeted and carry forward from this current fiscal year, is 1.8, and that give us an ending fund balance at 8.7. And out of the ending fund balance, 8.7, and is 3 million is considered reserves. That would be our general fund 50% reserve for emergency. That is 2.7. Fund balance for the PARS contribution for upcoming next fiscal year, that is 100,000. We also have the designated reserve that is for the infrastructure, just in case there's any kind of unexpected infrastructure maintenance that require, that is 330,000. And we also have the restricted reserve, which is 1.2. That is our PARS. That is the Section 115 restricted trust.
So we'll go over that, how that affects our unfunded liability, which again, slightly improves our situation from last meetings. You'll see that. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Next, we'll talk about the expenditure issues, the other side of the coin for next year. We know the financing. We'll be continuing a number of projects that were started. The housing element, we have a couple things to finish there. We have some compliance issues that we mentioned in the housing element that we need to do. That's important because we don't want to get dinged in our next housing cycle, the seventh cycle that will start in 2029, I believe. So we want to get those things, continue to do things. A lot of those we've already done, such as the ADU ordinance updating and those kinds of things. But a lot of them are ministerial, but we need to get them done. Secondly, we are aware, and I think the council's aware, our zoning code and our general plan alignment are not necessarily in alignment. So we have potentially something that we can easily fix, but we have to do some hearings and have to amend our zoning code to bring them into sync. Our local hazard plan update is we have 2,000 left, and like I said, we're almost done. I think that's for any questions that come up. It's for all practical purposes done. I think they're finalizing, and we were correcting typos the other day, so we're very close to finalizing. I think we'll be bringing that to the council. If not in May, in June, you'll be seeing that, the updated version. Capital project infrastructure, the sewer maintenance, pump station improvement, that's sewer assessment. This is primarily the street on Villa Park Road. The design, we've got an estimate of $300,000. We have just over $3 million in that sewer assessment, so that's where that money will come from. That sewer assessment also covers sewer cleaning of $100,000 a year and sewer repair that, we occasionally have that, comes up and it's cleaning and we get backups and those kinds of things. The 25-26 Street Rehabilitation Project, our current estimate based on design is 1.37, which we got from the engineer. That's subsequent to our last workshop. That's for construction. That includes construction management, which as well, so that's the number there. We go out to bid. I think we'll be going out to bid in May. I think it may already be close to going out to bid. And then we'll come back for award probably in June, hopefully to be able to start work this summer. Pavement maintenance, that's just sidewalk repair and median repair, $45,000. Those are things that we have to repair. We also, for instance, and this is sort of a question I got asked by several people, if somebody has an accident and runs into our medians, their insurance pays for it. So we go after their insurance. So this $45,000 is for things that we have to address, like valves get repaired and things like that. So, but we have a number of accidents that typically happen on Villa Park Road, and they'll be repairing it. We get the insurance claim on that. The DG trail improvement, we're going to really go after it this year. We're talking about $75,000, pushing toward it. There's some things that we really need to get done. Every year it seems like we're replacing them. There is a new kind of DG that glues together kind of thing, so it will stay and hold up to the weather better. So we're hoping that. Unfortunately, many of our trails have a slope to them, and anytime you have slope and materials, water, heavy rains are going to affect that. So we're trying to figure out how to deal with that. Council travel, we have $10,000, same budget as last year. We have not spent that in the 10 years I've been here, but it's there for $2,000 each should you feel the need to go somewhere. Technology, we try and continue to upgrade our computers because every 3 to 5 years, some of ours are, we need to upgrade them. So it's $10,000 we budget there. Our annual subscription to our budget financial system is $24,000. Our permitting system is $14,000. We have new city council members who are allowed to get laptops and cell phones if they want them. So we have budgeted as $5,000. It's up to them potentially, or we don't have to spend it. It's up to at least, we'll have one new position, and if that person wants it, or if the others, there's a lot of scenarios, we're just budgeting them out. Salaries and employee benefits, our health insurance is going up $8,000. Our workers' comp is actually going down. We've been very fortunate, although we did have a little hiccup the other day when our former employee twisted an ankle, but it was not serious. Our salaries are $19,000 increase. That gives us a 3% merit pool. Every 1% is about a little over 6,000. So we'll deal with that. So additional, the contracted external, the law enforcement, this is going to come up twice. The law enforcement contract, as I mentioned last time, is, and you guys executed the agreement, so it's 8,200 down. However, labor negotiations are still pending, and every percent they give is 17,000 increase. So net, we're gonna lose. The question is, how much do we lose and when do we have to deal with it? Animal control is 43,000, almost flat, 600, or that $600 difference. Code enforcement contract is 159,000, that's external. We no longer have our animal shelter construction costs, that's a zero, so we paid that out. Our insurance premium, and again, knock on wood, and you hate to say this, but because we've had good fortune with our employees and we have such a small employee base, our insurances are actually going down. $7,000, which is for NV5, which is our 3% annual COLA increase that's negotiated. Planning services, there'll be no increase, so it'll be the same as prior year. I mentioned you guys improved a contract with Malad to get us up to there, so we used 3 different firms. 150,000, 50,000 each is what we'll be putting in there. This year, every other year, we have a municipal election cost. That costs us 15,000. We're just billed straight from the county. And there will be one, because we have one new person no matter what, because we have one terms out, so there'll be an election. If we don't get billed it, if there are incumbents and no challengers, that would have been, but since there is at least one new trade, we'll get billed that full amount. Automated finger print ID system, that's what the sheriff uses for 2,300. Our support cost for Bray IT is 37,000. Traffic engineering on call at 12,000. Cal Recycle, we talked about that a little bit. We have a grant there. What's important there is this grant expires in November. So this is what pays for the mulch, basically, and compost. So if anything we can get is an extension from the state, because November it expires. We're not alone. A lot of cities are in the same boat. They just simply aren't able to spend the money fast enough. But we will be doing at least 2 more mulch compost giveaways, but it's not going to use up our money. So we're not going to, it'd be very difficult for us to spend the 75,000 by the end of the year. I can't do much about that. Pavement management program, that's where we go out and look at our PCI. We just completed that. So that's a 0, so it's 25,000 less than last year. On-call survey and grading, we added that 15,000, as you'll recall. JL Hunter contract, which they do our NPDS and WQMP, and that's recoverable by fees. Our catch basin cleaning is 31,000, that's from our sewer fund. So that's it. So the next page is, I think, one that Councilman Freckleton was very interested in. Our contribution rate goes up for unfunded actual liability, goes up 15.6 thousand. Our classic membership rate, it goes from 12.56, was at 12.58. So we have no remaining. Our PEPRA is really constant, fairly constant. Now, where are we with our liabilities? There's 2 elements to our liabilities with pension. One is our retiree health benefits. Remember, we started putting 50,000 away every year. We initially had an unfunded liability, but now we have 112 set aside, including interest earned. So our net liability for our pension fund is $1,000. So I think you could call that pretty much paid off. We're not going to recommend putting any more money in there, for obvious reasons. We're paid off in there. Our pension benefits, which is the bigger side of it, the actuarial liability is $5.9 million. Based on our unfunded actual, the CalPERS gives us a number, is $1.8 million. All right, we have a Section 115 trust of $1.04 million. So we are funded at an 88% rate. Our net liability is $800,000. All right, so that's where we stand at this point. So we're at 88%. I think last year you had wanted us to get to 90 by 3 years. So we're going to be at 90 before 3 years. But that's, again, we just had the investment advisory committee meet the other day, and they were strongly recommending not to get too far over 90, just because of the varying rates and assumptions that change. So we're very good, well-funded from our pension situation. If you look at other cities, we're very, very well funded. Now, what's important about the Section 115 trust is that's an irrevocable trust. So we can't take that $1 million out. That's locked in. It can only go toward pension. However, if we ever are in a dire situation, a strategy could be, and I wouldn't recommend it, you could stop giving money from the general fund on an annual basis and use that to cover your annual contribution. I wouldn't recommend that because you're borrowing from your savings account to pay your annual cost. So that's an option down the road, so there's a strategy if we ever need it. But again, we are 88% funded, and CalPERS is like 2 years ago, they got a new CFO, and they're being more aggressive, so their returns are greater. If that's reliable, I don't know. I mean, I still think we're wiser to have our own Section 115. Now, we do not aggressively, our investment policy is not a super aggressive. It's moderate, balanced. In other words, we are like in the safe zone. In other words, we're not chasing the return. We're getting good returns, but we're not chasing it. So that's really important. And that's the Investment Advisory Committee has recommended we stay there in that sort of strategy. You can be super aggressive, but then you're chasing return and the risk becomes greater. So I think that we've sort of said, no, we don't need to. We're doing well as we are. So our reserves, I'm proud to say, are 50% of our general operating fund. We've got almost 2.7 million. That is unrestricted. So if we have, just think about this and put it in perspective. We have 3 times the amount of our unfunded actuarial liability sitting in reserve unallocated. If we ever wanted to pay down to zero, we could do it. I wouldn't recommend it because, again, we have, like, if you remember in 2017, there was the Mesa Henderson flood channel, and that was 1.8 million. So you need to have these money set aside. So I'm really cognizant of that. But again, to put it in perspective, we are well financed. If we had to, we could have zero debt. But I don't know that that's really the plate you want to be. Our contribution, like I say, we're going to be putting 100,000 back in CalPERS against our Section 115. That will be our 9th year. Again, I think we have over $1 million, and if it's 9 years and we're putting 100,000, we're gaining money on it. It's been a good return. Our general fund contingency, you guys approved every year 120,000. That is discretionary, that we can use for anything. Obviously with council approval, but that's what we paid for instance, when we had the sewer problem out back. We used that money, and that's sort of what takes care of it. So we didn't spend, I don't think very much, less than 10,000 this year. So we're very judicious about spending it, and I typically will go to the council, let you know whatever I've spent it on. So that's kind of where we are. I mentioned this is the pending issues, and this is the big one that's going to be hitting us. And again, I know some of you already talked to our supervisors, et cetera, is the law enforcement contractor, 17,000 for every 1% negotiated. We do not have anything budgeted at this point. I mean, we can deal with it. Obviously, we've got monies there, but I think what's important is I've always adopted sort of the strategy that if you put money in the budget, it's going to get spent. So if we put in, 5% or whatever, the supervisor is going to turn around and say, we already got it budgeted. Why don't you spend it? I mean, I would prefer as low a number as we can get in negotiations. We don't control it, but you guys have input to the supervisors. It doesn't just have to be ours. It's 3 of them that vote, have to vote, prove it, but they're in the middle of that. The automated license plate readers, if we were to go with the proposal as submitted by the most recent proposal, it's 46,000 or almost 47 for 5 years each. That's pending, so it's sort of pending, but I'm giving you that's sort of one of those issues that's hanging out there. Hopefully we'll be able to address it in 26, 27 sooner than later. But I talked to the sheriff, and they're finalizing their grant application. So I think they're moving and they're interested. They haven't lost interest in the whole process. Villa Park Road, we took a PCI. One of the things we focused on was a pavement condition index for Villa Park Road. Because if you're going to have that many trucks going on it, I wanted to know what it looked like before, and then we'll be able to look like what it's after. So we've got a $680,000 surety bond that was given to us that we can spend on, and I'm not going to return any of that if we have to repair the road, obviously, so it's there for that purpose. But we're going to try and consolidate that with the median upgrade and the sewer project. So there's a lot of, it's like a 3-piece effort there. So the sewer project, we're going out for design, that's $300,000. The median upgrade is roughly $300,000. We've tentatively got conceptual plans, and we'll come to the council with full plans when we're ready to move forward on it. That's going to be the easiest piece to probably pull together once we're there. I will share with you that we did submit a grant application through Congresswoman Kim's office, and we received a no on that, so we didn't get that. That being said, she has her staff meeting with me Wednesday morning to see if there's other funds that could be identified. Because I sort of complained and said, come on, you're giving Serrano Water District $250,000. You couldn't come up with something for us. And so they understand that, you know, they can't just look past us. So we'll see what we can come up with. I'm going to keep pushing to try and whatever. We have not heard on the OCTA grant that we applied for, but, you know, we'll see. We're going to continue to try and cobble together some funding. Mesa Channel, interesting sort of dynamics going on there. We have fixed portion of it, but there's another portion of it that's eroding, so we have to do some more work. We did it, if you remember, I hate to bring anyone's name up, but Joe McCarthy's house had a lot of erosion back there. We fixed that. We put some riprap or whatever they call it. And then there's some more that has to be done in there. So interesting enough, we came up with a very creative solution. You'll recall that two of the planters on Villa Park Road were hit by a Mercedes. They are non-repairable. So as a way to sort of reduce the amount of like large bricks and things we have to put in there to reduce the flow, we're going to use those, the broken ones, and put them in the channel to slow the flow, which will help us do that. So it's, instead of just being tossed away and us having to pay to have them removed, we're going to use that as a device to help us slow the channel down and avoid having pockets of water down the place. So yeah, we'll do it into larger. I mean, as they are, they can't be used, but they're already broken somewhat. But getting them to smaller, and instead of having to go out and search for it, we have a natural source, so we can repurpose them, if you will. Not the ideal plan, but it works, and I think A for creativity. You know, so there we go. City Hall maintenance improvement. If you've talked to Dr. Ferkalo, you know that this is one of his major projects. He wants us to paint our building, and we do need to do some work on here. And I've talked to Councilman McBride on, you know, there are some issues out front that we need to do on the concrete, et cetera. We have some money in there, but the problem is we're paying prevailing wage, which is a problem. So I'm trying to figure out a way, I hate to say this, but figure out a way that we can get this done. So, you know, I don't know how we can do that. I hate to sort of, not trying to evade the law, but if we could help fund the foundation, and the foundation did the work as a gift to the city, then potentially we might be able to have a cheaper process. So I'm going to try and figure out a way to do something like that. But we do need to do the work. We definitely need to paint the building. There are cracks on the side, stucco repair, and those kinds of things. We talked a little bit before about AI applications for building and planning. Those are some things that we can use, and we're looking at the applicability of those. Other cities are looking at it, but it's cautiously. I'm not giving away the control of the ship, if you will. And I know there has been some discussions about, oh, you should talk about moving your finances. That's the last thing I'll ever put into AI control. I'm sorry, I'm very conservative about that. Fencing and trail improvement repair, we obviously have one that was demolished up in the northern area of the city. We'll fix some of those. That insurance will cover that. But all along, those, you know, when you have split rail fences in wood, those things deteriorate and you need to be repaired. And so we're going to aggressively pursue that. Crosswalk adjustments, they've got a couple of them. Santiago in particular, we keep putting that thing in the middle and it becomes a target. I think Mayor Pro Tem Frackelman said he saw someone almost intentionally drive it over. And that's sort of, it is we do have people crossing there and kids crossing there, so we want to figure that out. So we're kind of playing around with ideas. What that means, I don't know yet. I mean, we've talked about putting those things that blink on the road when somebody hits the thing. The problem with those, the batteries are very unreliable, and any entity that has them is not putting them in anymore because of the battery and the charging and the electrical you have to run. So anyway, long story short, that doesn't seem to be the ideal options, although maybe technology improves. We'll see we want to do something. I know Councilman McBride has talked about the one up on Valley. We're playing around with getting some estimates and figure out what makes sense where, location-wise, et cetera. The big one that I've sort of picked up on is, remember the PEG money, which is the cable money that we have about 88,000. So you'll see the cameras up here, and if you look on screen, you can see your faces, but if you look at presentation, it's really kind of blurry. These cameras are probably from my predecessor's era. So the cameras themselves, we never upgraded them. There are 4 of them, I think, 4? There are 4. And we replaced all the wiring and all that, but we need to replace the cameras. We got an estimate to do the kind of thing, including the remote control things they need to do, about 80 to 90,000, which oddly enough, we have about 88,000 in PEG money. So I think if we can get a good bid, we might come back to the council and move forward on that. Just because I think it's important that, you know, if we're doing a presentation, the public shouldn't have to squint or hope and call us up and look on it elsewhere. We want to be able to have them see it. I think that's really an important thing. So we're going to try and play with that a little bit and come back to you when we get some good estimates. But I think that's, otherwise, we have a very solid, and thank you for approving the new policy here. We've had less temperature changes in the thermometer and things like that already because we tell people. But we do have some things that, you know, our technology is great in some ways, but it's fragile in other ways. So we have an iPad here that we have to lock. We have kids in this room. We have lots of people that touch and do things here. So we really do have to keep a careful eye on it. And so thank you for adopting the policy that helps us monitor that. So with that, again, I do want to emphasize that we budget our expenditures on the high side, that we expect the worst case scenario, and we budget our revenues on the low side, as you'll see on the property tax. We don't anticipate the maximum we're getting in. So in other words, we always sort of come back in a more favorable spot. And we are in a more favorable spot than we were even 3 weeks ago, as you know. I sometimes go to city manager meetings, and I like hear all the woes of these cities, and I think I just keep my mouth shut. I don't want to say anything because you don't want to have to knock on wood and say, well, we were good. But I think because of the judicial approach and the council has taken over the years, past and present, we've been able to keep our budgets in very good sync and where we are. So we are not in a situation, unfortunately, where some of our neighbors are dealing with and some of the other issues that they're having to contemplate. A number of cities. I mean, it's not just one or two, there are multiple cities. And we are an anomaly because we're over 95% property tax based. So that's a big issue for us. You know, I mean, it's like, we're not sales tax driven, so we're not going to chase we get 300,000 from sales tax. So if I get a new drugstore or something in there, it's not going to bring that much difference in it. It's not going to solve our problems, whatever. We really need to take care of our property and make sure the quality of the homes, which is a good thing, because I think that makes the property values go up. I saw a thing that we're one of the few cities that has a rise in property values. Jonathan Lasner, and if you ever see him in the register, he does a really good job of comparing. And Villa Park always fares very well in that. So that's a credit again to the council and our active involvement with them. So with that, our next step is to adopt the budget on June 23rd. And again, I'm expecting no changes except potentially the sheriff contract. I don't know when they'll negotiate, and I can't tell you when that's going to be finalized, but we'll deal with it. And it's not going to throw us out of balance. It's not going to be one I want to deal with, but I'll keep you advised when I hear more. That's it for Lee and I, and we can answer any questions. Right.
Have you run the GAN appropriation limit so far?
We're well under our limit, our appropriation limit. So we're very good from year to year, and we do that. And that, you'll see that as part of the approval of that, and with the budget adoption, you'll see the actual calculation.
Okay.
So that comes with our
Looked
budget.
like you were approaching close. It's such a complex calculation, so.
The numbers continue to rise, so we'll be fine.
Yeah,
I'm not worried about that at all, because there's an escalation clause, and we are not pushing the limit.
Okay,
So as every year you stay under, you kind of benefit by attrition carrying forward. So yeah, I mean, yes, it's something we have to watch, but it's not something I'm particularly worried about.
You may have mentioned this, but the money that we contribute every year for bridges,
Yes. Well, we don't contribute, we contribute to North Spa,
North Spa,
right?
is that, I thought that there was an increase, or it was going to increase?
It could increase, but at the same time, since we got our housing element approved, we're getting now some state money that's coming through that should decrease that. So actually, we went ahead and paid the full amount as if we weren't going to get that state money.
Right.
So I was talking to the La Habra, who does the bookkeeping for the North Spa on this particular account, and asked them when they were going to start giving us credit. Well, they've got to go figure that out, and depending on the state is 2 years in arrears. So we will see a reduction,
Okay,
potentially, because we've continued to pay maximum, assuming we were never going to get that.
That's not listed here yet.
No.
Okay.
Because I think that's a favorable thing, and I never want to anticipate and count on favorable things. I know it's coming, but I'm not going to
No,
say it's.
I like that approach. I just
Yeah.
wanted to address it and make sure, yeah, okay. We'll look for it next year.
valley between Center and Lemon, the hump,
Right.
and then the erosion that's going off down
That's
to,
part of the study that they're
Jim
doing. We hired a hydrologist, as you recall, to look at that. So that's in the design plans for the street project.
and that's incorporated in the budget?
Yes, that's a 1.4 million that we have roughly. That's in the 1.4.
Okay, because it wasn't listed as a remaining issue, but
No, it's part of the street project because we incorporated it into the street project. So in lieu of doing a separate project and having to do a separate bid, it's all part of the same, and that way we get cost efficiencies from, people pulling out, doing that.
And do you feel confident Villa Park Road's gonna happen in 26, 27, even if we don't get Young Kim money or whatever? Or,
I don't know about that, and then, so the sort of thing is, I'd love to say yes. The problem is, there's a whole nother East Orange project that's gonna happen, that's gonna involve a lot more hauling. And so I'm kind of like, and I have talked to the Orange City manager, and he tells me, oh yeah, that's a bigger project than the 22 Mayberry. And that's gonna involve like a couple years worth of hauling.
but can we punt the sewer thing that long?
Yeah, no, the sewer is fine right now. The sewer repair or modification is to address the development for East Orange. So our capacity is fine as we have right now. What we want to do is we're doing anticipation of that development. So I've kind of got mixed feelings. Do we do it, fix up the street, and do all that thing, and then turn around and have to break it down again when and if we have a whole nother repair because of years of truck? Now, there's a lot of give on that one because I really think if it's East Orange, the route has to change. We can't have the same route that we have now from Mayberry.
They gotta share the pain.
Yeah, and it's got to be, a lot different. They can go up the easternmost portion, not have to come through our portion. So I'm hoping that's part of the thing. And the Orange City manager has says, yeah, I understand your position, and I don't care if they come up Jamboree, I don't care if they come up whatever. There has to be some. So at the most, I would think it's a 50%, 50-50, but I don't think I'm going to push for a lot more than that from a less share for us. But again, that's sort of a complicating thing. Do we go ahead and repair something? I don't want the residents to have to deal with multiple years of remodeling, redoing of refurbishing Villa Park Road. So we do it once and then we end up doing it again and we do it again and we do it again, or whatever. And that's, I understand. Now, I don't know the details of that East Orange project, but I understand it's pretty significant. It's much larger than the prior 22 homes. I don't know how many homes it involves, but I know it's a huge development, and that's going to be, I've understood it's like 2 to 3 years of hauling. So I've kind of got mixed feelings. Do we repair? Do we not? Do we hold our money and do it right one time? Or I don't know. I mean, a lot depends on their time frame. Sometimes entitlements like that take, if it takes 4 or 5 years, then maybe we do fix it. I don't know. I'm going to see where they land on this thing.
All right, well, I'm excited about seeing the new and improved, but I get it. We don't want to improve it and then have it be destroyed by
I think that
trucks.
would be hard for the residents to have to, okay, we're shutting down or going to one, I mean, literally, when you work on it, you're going to shut it down one lane each way.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be a pleasant experience for anyone traveling on Villa Park Road. As you know, it's a pretty busy road.
Especially they're fighting with trucks.
Yeah, and you're fighting with trucks, large trucks, the big ones.
And your fear is that we do the sewer improvement program, and then the trucks will crush the asphalt, and then
We have to do it
cause,
again.
that's the problem, not the median is not the issue.
No, the
It's-
median we can repair, but if you're
Right.
going to do the road, you're going to affect the median. That's the problem. And that's what's, and trucks, I mean, a truck does a misstep and knocks out half of the median, I mean, or whatever. I mean, that happens. We see it all the time, So I'm really, really kind of going back and forth on it.
I understood that they have not created the land bridge over Santiago Creek either, and that they're using Mayberry as the route, which they promised would be the last resort.
Yeah, that's sort of an orange issue. I think we've got everything we were hoping we could get, which is a bad deal for us, but we still got the best we could get out of it, thanks to all of your participation and going and speaking up. Like I say, we have a $680,000 surety bond. We had a lot more for hauling expenses than Orange did. So we got a lot going on in our favor there. The crossing guard's out there already. So, I mean, I think I have not heard any complaints from people yet, but trucks are going up and down. I've seen trucks go up and down, so. I don't know the numbers as high as they said they would be, but I don't know what's going on at the project and kind of staying away from it.
Another question under the pending issues, the automated license plate readers. You've got 46.6 thousand a year for 5 years. Originally, we had talked about trying to keep that budget around 35.
I
So
just put the maximum there potentially.
Okay.
It's obviously, it's something less than that.
Yeah.
You could have less cameras, or we could have fully paid for by the sheriff. I mean, there's a lot of but in consistent with, let's throw the worst out there, there it is. And if, we can go backwards. I hate to say, oh, we got 30,000 and we have to spend another 16. That always feels like a failure on my part because I didn't alert you to the worst case scenario. So 46 was their bid. I'd like to see it under 30. As we've talked, even less than that. But,
Right.
I mean, that's sort of, we're holding on it.
yeah, because even the coverage on the Axon cameras for the lanes is better.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a potential to cut that down, so.
Oh, and I would hope we do. I mean, again, the number is, it's out there, and then I always sort of feel better if I come in and tell you, oh, we have this amount, but it came in this amount. You guys saying, good job in negotiating. So I always feel better. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Thank you.
I wanted to echo Robert's observation on the valley hump. We see additional cracking. We see that the downhill side starting to slip.
It goes up further than they went out and did some testing, and it goes up further than we all thought. So they're having to address that, and that will be part of it.
Yeah, because that might get costly down the road, yeah.
In addition to the cameras in here, I get complaints mostly from my mother that she can't hear very well the sound of city council meetings. Is the sound also going to be looked at being improved, or is it?
Well, the sound is
best it
actually
can be?
2 years old or 3 years old, so if there's a problem, we can address that now. I mean, there should be, this is as good equipment as, as there is. And it was installed, so we'll check on the sound if that's a problem. I don't, Okay. It could be the transmission from Spectrum or whatever. Yeah, so it could be the Spectrum transmission too as well. So it could be a number of issues of what they're transmitting it on. I'm not a big fan of Spectrum, but it is what it is.
And for the cameras, I mean, the license plate cameras, if we receive grants from the sheriff department, I think last time Councilwoman Jones mentioned, if we receive the grant from the sheriff department, then they own that camera and the data, so we have no jurisdiction on how that camera is operating.
But we contract with them, we'd have a side agreement on how that data would be used. I think that was the point we talked about. And the sheriff, now what they negotiate with us, there remains to be seen, and Councilwoman Jones can probably add more to that.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. I think when we go down that road, we'll have an in-depth discussion about it, because there's also been state audits that have found the sheriff's department in violation of laws in the state of California for how that data is used. So we'll have to kind of address all of that when this all comes up.
Just in closing, I again want to say that, and if anybody who's watching or watches this afterwards, they do need to know that Villa Park is in a unique situation financially, and we have a lot to be proud of financially. And again, I think people need to know that we're not talking increases or tax increases or things like that down here. And that's a very important message that they get out there, because people are saying, well, how can a city that surrounds you have a tax increase issue and we don't? I think that's because of the conservative approach this council has taken over the years. And I want to reiterate that if there's any takeaway, that's important. That's really important.
I would like to go back to the Villa Park Road design.
Yeah.
I appreciate your philosophy on not committing when we will actually do the project. My concern is more when we spend $300,000 for the design, and I would imagine the design will be meeting the code currently. But if we wait 3 years later, 5 years later, the code will be different, then wouldn't we have to spend another design, or You know, that's where are we gonna spend a little bit more by waiting? I mean, I also understand why you want to wait. I understand that part, but just should we just wait for the design completely?
Well, to the extent that this project, I mean, it really varies on how fast this project is moving. Right now, if I had to be a betting person, I'd say it's not gonna move fast enough. We probably should do it. But, I mean, if they, all of a sudden, they get their entitlement and the city comes through and figures it all out, it's not a priority figuring out right now in the city. They've got other issues that they're dealing with, obviously. The sewer has to be done in time for that new development, okay? So that's gonna have to be done. The median, we could probably hold, I mean, I don't know, I mean, there's a lot of like ways this can go. And I think what we need to do is I need to keep talking to Orange and see where they are. The design, you're right, the 300 for design is sewer. That is not gonna change. The sewer design is the piping and the slope and all that. That's gonna be a constant, okay? What I'm talking about is, do we have to do asphalt repair along the way, et cetera, which will change the dynamics, like Councilman McBride said, it changes the dynamics of what has to be filled, compacted, blah, blah, blah. So that will change. But so we're really combining 3 projects into one, the median, the sewer, and the road itself. You know, I mean, I don't want the road deterioration to be like 4 years out and it looks really bad, it's chipped up and got potholes and things like that. We need to sort of figure out where we are with that. But there's 3 different projects here that we're kind of rolling into one. In a perfect world, we'd want them all to be done once, but I don't know if that can happen. We may not be in that luxury. And again, so the design for the 300,000 for the sewer will not change. That sewer is going to be, they've got to go a certain size pipe, certain size slope, and that's done based on technology of whatever, gravity-based sewer programs, which I've learned more about than I ever want to know, but it is, a certain slope, and the volume, based on the volume, has to be an even greater slope or whatever it has to be.
Is the median design going to come to council
Yes.
at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
What we do is like at this point, a conceptual, so for instance, when I applied for something for the federal, they said, well, what's your ballpark? Do you have any ideas what it's gonna look like? And I said, well, yeah, we have a $300,000 estimate. We're gonna be plus or minus 50,000 of that. But before we go forward with it, we'd have to go out to bid and finalize the design and all that stuff. But I needed something to be able to share with the entities that we're applying for grants, because they all say, give us an idea of what you're talking about. And if you don't have that idea, they say, well, come back when you're ready. So this is just and it will come back most definitely as part of the whole project. There's a lot that needs to be probably addressed and things like that. And the council will have their own desires and things like that, and we'll get that all figured out. But that'll be as we move forward. Right now, I just need to be able to say, so when Congressman Kim's office said, well, what are you looking at? Well, we're looking at 300,000, this is the kind of thing we're gonna be doing. Oh, okay, that gives them a graphic of whatever. It's not in any way, shape, or form the actual final design. It's a conceptual model, and we need to keep thinking of it that way. Thank you.
All right, we will adjourn this budget workshop meeting, and we will see everybody regular city council meeting May 19th at 6:30. Thank you. Have a good night.